Hello to my Zen Disc Golf friends and family around the world, and I do mean around the world. Hello to United States, Canada, Finland, Norway, Germany, United Kingdom, Australia, Sweden, Denmark, France, St. Lucia, Japan, Croatia, Italy, Mexico, New Zealand, Argentina, Estonia, Czech Republic. That's right, we're going to all of those countries, and this is amazing. How wonderful it is to spread the good news of disc golf and mindfulness in the same podcast to all those countries, on people all around the world. Before we get started on episode 13, let's get some sponsorship stuff out of the way. First of all, you've heard me talk about them before, Appalachian Disc Golf. Again, they've got free shipping on all orders. Not many places have free shipping on all orders. And they have my book, so you can buy that, get you free shipping, get some discs, get you a new bag to shove your discs and the book in it. You know, get all that stuff, AppalachianDiscGolf.com. And if you love audiobooks as much as I do, I listen to one in the car everywhere I go. It's kind of a productivity hack of mine to try to read more and get more information into that brain of mine. But you also like free stuff, Zen Disc Golf and podcasts, which, hey, I have a feeling that you like all of those things if you're listening right now. Let me tell you how to get you a free copy of Zen and the Art of Disc Golf for your ears. Go to audibletrial.com/Zen Disc Golf and get yourself set up for a free month subscription of Audible. Then go and download Zen and the Art of Disc Golf and get that title for free. Now, you can cancel this at any time, but let me tell you, they've got over 180,000 books. Guarantee you'll just go from one book to the next, to the next, to the next. Let's go ahead and get this lucky number 13 podcast started with your moment of Zen. Each moment is all being. Each moment is the entire world. Reflect now whether any being or any world is left out of the present moment. Dogen. Welcome to Lucky Episode 13. Hello, Zachary.
Patrick.
How are you?
I am in rare form today.
Yeah?
Oh.
The last 15 minutes between the last podcast and this one really kind of got you out of that anger from last episode and just put you in the zone, huh?
The anticipation for what is about to be this podcast, nearly uncontainable.
Plus, it helped that you nailed a couple 30-footers out there.
I did. One or two. I don't like to brag, but 2 baskets at once, I don't want to brag.
We got Tim back as well. What's going on, Tim?
I've missed you guys so much. It's been such a long time.
So, what's new with Zen? So last time we talked a lot about the Kickstarter. This podcast will probably drop in about 2.5 weeks from now because the last podcast will drop on Tuesday. Mm-hmm. So in 2 weeks from now, I don't know what's happened with Zen for the next 2 weeks.
Some things.
Some things. What I can tell you is some good news, some bad news, and some more good news. So the good news is, my side little project, the Deconstructing Reality thing, is going amazing. The podcast is now on iTunes. You're available to subscribe to my other podcasts where you can hear me talk even more about mind strength, philosophy, spirituality, things like that we don't go so in depth on here because this is primarily a disc golf podcast, a sports psychology podcast, but I go into a lot more things on that. So that's actually on iTunes. You can subscribe there. You can go to deconstructing-reality.com. So that's a good thing for me. The bad thing for me, and I told Zach this last time we were on the disc golf course. How many days you got left?
2, 3.
You got 3 left here, right? Mm-hmm. And what did I tell you? I said, selfishly, I'm not happy about that.
Dude, rightfully so. I mean, we're in the midst of a killer podcast, and Zen Disc Golf has taken off. But fortunately and unfortunately, I must transition careers.
You're going to be here with us, though.
Oh, yeah.
You're not leaving.
No.
It's just that we won't necessarily be sitting across from each other. We'll be doing more like what we do with Tim out in Chicago.
Skyping it up.
You got it.
Yeah.
You won't get the mustache bump though.
No, and I feel like it'll just be kind of lonely just podcasting here by myself, and I haven't even tested it out. I'm hoping it works with 2 people on there and still recording properly. We'll make it work, though. No matter what it takes, we'll make it work.
Well, fortunately, if we have some hiccups, it's a 9-hour drive for me, and it costs me $30 to get here. So screw it. Well, we'll figure it out.
Oh yeah, definitely. I don't remember what episode it was, but when we talked about we met. So I'm going to be quite honest with you. The first time we met, you were a little kind of aggressive to me.
I'm an aggressive guy.
Do you remember that?
Yeah. Why should I buy your book?
It was only like 5-6 months ago. But from that point of, hey, I'm going to buy your book, but you got to sell it to me first. Holy cow. What the? I never had to sell anything. Buy it or don't. I don't care. But we were at a book signing in, what's the name of that?
Play It Again Sports. Lynn Haven.
Terrible. Play It Again Sports. And you came up and you said, I'm going to buy your book, but you got to sell it to me first. And then I said, I want to do a podcast, and that's the guy I want to be on the podcast. Because you just have this, you are funny, number one. We were just talking about all of the elements that everybody brings to the table here. You're funny, you're intelligent, you're a great disc golfer, and you're a better friend.
Oh, thank you, Pat.
And I hate losing you to New York. But you got to go be with your family. Totally get it. So that's the bad news. So the good, the bad. Here's the good. Yeah, we're back to the good again. I have been putting a lot of thought, and if you listen to the Q&A that I did in lieu of an episode last week, which I already asked Zach if he listened to it, and he says, no, I don't listen to the podcast. So I talked about sponsorship, and I talked about how that was going to happen within this year. Well, I put a lot of thought into it, and I'm still not done thinking about it, but I want to run sort of a trial, and there are 2 people I know of who would be the best people to try out sponsorship, and that would be Zach Englehart and Tim.
Very exciting.
Wow.
So I'd like to sponsor you guys.
Oh, wow.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So when you guys come up and tell me what that means, I'll be glad to do it. You now have the title. Now we got to figure out together as a team. So you guys are my 2 first sponsored players.
Well, for starters, I'd like it 70, 80,000 a year, full bennies.
All right, sponsorship canceled.
Way to ruin a good thing, Zach.
Yeah, way to go, Tim. Thanks for having my back.
So I kind of have an idea of what that means, and we'll talk about it later, and we'll kind of see. You guys are the best first trial. You're good guinea pigs because you guys aren't going. We're going to work this out together. We're going to make this a team effort and figure out how it's going to really come together. But no one, and I mean no one since the beginning has been better than Tim Stewart and Zach Englehart about getting the message, the philosophy, everything that I stand for out in this world. And so I thank both of you from the bottom of my heart for doing that, and giving something back to you guys is for just doing the podcast even. But I want to call you guys team members. So you guys are my guinea pigs, and you'll be the first, and we'll start adding some more players in as time moves on.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, and I'm definitely honored. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
No problem. So I am not sponsored.
Well, my Mighty Disc hasn't sponsored anybody yet, so maybe we might have to work something out there.
You sponsor me, I'll sponsor you, and we'll both sponsor Zach.
Perfect.
Awesome. I love it.
I think my sponsorship is just going to be getting Zach Twitter followers. That's going to be pretty much what it is.
Hey, you know what? I'm all for it. Whatever you need to do.
Just kidding.
You need me to go out there and break some kneecaps to get some thought. You got a Twitter? You do now. Crack.
So that's what I got for you guys as far as news goes. Tim, you had an idea for the podcast.
Yeah, I thought, a lot of people tune into the podcast and they listen to us talk and they hear us have a good time, and I've always wanted to know a little bit more about you, and I'm definitely sure that the readers want to know a little bit more about you. And I thought it would be kind of cool if instead of talking about a specific topic, that Zach and I took some time and we interviewed the man, the myth, the legend that is Patrick McCormick.
I'm scared.
You should be scared.
Be afraid.
It's so funny that this has come up, and you asked about this before we did the last podcast, and I said, okay, and then Zach was like, when we were putting in the backyard, he goes, I really want to do that. I'm like, all right, well, if that's what you guys want to do, all right, that's cool. But it's funny that this kind of comes up because last time Zach and I were playing on the course, I talked about how I'm kind of in the shadows. I don't remember my exact word. Zach was like, well, is that the first time that you've been recognized on the course? And I'd be like, well, people can't recognize me because they don't see me.
Right.
So, in fact, the only way that guy recognized us on the course the other day was just because we were laughing and carrying on, and that's what we do on the podcast. So, anyway.
Tim, you want to lead off?
Yeah, let's start. Let's go back to the beginning. Pat, tell us a little bit about, kind of what brought you to where you are today. Are there any things that happened, when you were a kid or as you were growing up that if you look back, you're like, yep, I should have known I'd end up where I am now if I'd have just paid attention to the sign back then?
Well, no, not necessarily. And yes, at the same time, I guess. As a young person, I always wanted to be a musician, and I followed through with that dream, and I still make music today, and I still record music. But when I was young, when I say in my teens, I played in some hardcore bands, hardcore punk, and also some industrial bands. And I found myself working for a recording studio where I was given the keys to the studio and was able to do whatever I wanted in that studio, whatever time I wanted to come and go, as long as there weren't sessions booked. And so this was like a large canvas for creativity for me. And just the crowd that I kind of hung out with and the music that I listened to kind of dictated who I became. I had a lot of really positive influences, especially musically. And I grew up kind of a lot on Krishna core and positive hardcore and things like that. So that always, even when I was doing hardcore or industrial music, the whole idea of if you're going to put out a product, make it better someone else's life. That was always my mission, no matter what band I was in or what anything I did. So I always kept my lyrics and stuff very positive. And growing up listening to Krishna core and a lot of the straight edge hardcore and stuff like that, it kind of kept me out of trouble. I tried to keep other people out of trouble, but it also started my studies into, say, Eastern spirituality, psychology, philosophy, things of that nature. So I also played disc golf when I was growing up. I did go to a church, and I got involved with disc golf, say, at about 15 years old. I'm 33 now, so that makes my golf game 18 years old.
Your golf game's buying cigarettes,
It's
man.
buying
Picking a vote.
and nudie bags. But yeah, so I played that, kind of stopped playing for a little while, and then came back to it. But did I know I was going to write a book? I've always written stuff. I've written poetry since I was very young, and it was terrible poetry. But the amount of I've never shown Zach this, and I don't show too many people this, but the amount of writing and paper that I have just from over the years, I mean, it fills chests.
I believe it. Just seeing what you have between media violence, the different albums, all that you've made, and either all over your shelves, the book. I think you've written more than one book, I thought.
Yes, I put out 2 books of poetry in 2005. well, no, in 2005 I put out one book, and then in 2007 I put out another book. I don't think that I think one of them is still available, and I don't really know how it's available, because if people are buying it, I don't see any royalties from it. But I found it like on stores, and like I think it's available even on Kindle. I shouldn't be telling people this.
We're gonna track you down.
It's old material, and some of it's really positive. Like I said, I've always tried to be positive. Some of it's straight weird. Now people are really going to go looking for it. But there was that, and then I wrote a novel also when I was in 2007. Now that has not been published and probably won't be. But it was one of those bucket list things that I did, and so I did do that as well.
So that makes me wonder, you've spent a lot of time in your life being creative. You've done the music, you've done the poetry, you've done the writing. Some could argue that disc golf is a very creative sport. But a lot of people do that stuff. A lot of people in the wee hours of the morning and in the dark and in the quiet times, they'll write or they'll draw or they'll sing or they'll pick up the guitar that they own that nobody knows they have. But there's a big step between doing that and publishing something and putting out a book on Kindle or writing a book like Zen and the Art of Disc Golf, or going and playing in a tournament or going and playing in leagues and really taking the thing that you love and the creativity that you love and putting it out there. What do you think it is that motivated you to kind of take that next step? And what are some things that maybe people out there who are closet authors, or maybe they have a disc golf book in them, what is it that makes you go out and put that work in front of other people?
Well, the first thing I'm going to say or answer that is to say I have a psychological problem. and that problem is that I feel like, and I don't know why this is, and it's not necessarily the best thing in the world, however, it does make me productive, that I am extremely project oriented, and I get a high off completing something. And I almost don't do anything that I cannot document. Okay. And that's just been going on since I was very young. In fact, my best friend, Aaron, actually, we have a podcast. We have another podcast together, which I have never talked about on this podcast. But we have a couple episodes out there where he and I keep track. The name of that podcast is Keeping Track Podcast. And what we do is basically we call each other, because we've been hanging out since we were very young kids, and now he is he lives across the state from me, works for a college, and he's very technology oriented, just as we always were when we were growing up. But he has this really interesting thing where he also lives in the middle of nowhere. So he's got this kind of dualistic kind of thing going on. So that podcast is kind of us keeping track with one another and telling stories about working in the recording studio with one another and things like that. But if you were to ask him, going back to when we were 14, 15 years old, I would carry a tape recorder, a mini cassette recorder, which I don't know if anybody remembers those anymore.
I had one. They're great. But
I would carry that. I would record straight conversations just to have it documented. So I was podcasting like 18 years ago. So I still have a lot of those recordings just in the archives and stuff like that. But I guess the point of that is I was always making something, and I enjoy completing it. Now, the taking the next step, what you have to understand about that is when you take something that you've created and then you unleash it upon the world, you really are walking out on a limb. And it's not the easiest feeling to have. It really isn't, because what you do is you open yourself to criticism. And I've explained it as if you're walking out further and further on a limb. And every podcast that we do, it's further on that limb. We do a Kickstarter, I'm walking further on that limb. And basically, I just have trust and faith that it's going to hold and that we're not going to fall off. It brings my life personal meaning to do the things that we do. Not because I feel like I constantly need a pat on the back. I've just always been a project-oriented person. I always have to be doing something, and there has to be a project or product at the end of it. And that's why I say I have a psychological problem. So I actually have to stop myself and get mindful to live in the moment and not just focus on the end piece as well. Does that answer your question? I know I went all over the place.
Yeah, for sure.
So the question then that brings to my mind is, to what or to whom do you attribute your artistic and creative abilities?
The only way I could answer that is to just say that I step out of the way and the creativeness comes out. That's the best way for me to create. The best things I've ever created have come from me removing my own limitations and saying, you just get into that state of flow, and you get out of the way and you let the work do itself. I don't know how to answer that in another way, because that's the best way that this stuff comes out of me. My parents were not very musical. Mm-hmm. They could sing. My mother could play piano. My mother was a reading teacher, but I don't know if all of that really affected, who I am today. I don't know. I think there's so much more than just those things.
Okay. Now, you have this immense depth to the artist side of you, the creator. Those are two of your hats that you wear. I understand it that you also, work for the fire department. You have a very serious, very intense job at times. Can you kind of explain to us what it is that drives you to work in that profession?
Well, I was never the kind of person that could do a 9-to-5 job. I did get a college degree in business, and after that I worked for a couple of finance companies and realized that just putting me behind a desk was death. I just couldn't do it. Every time I would get in a situation like that, I would just leave. I'd have to leave the job for my own sanity. And that prompted me to start a lot of businesses. And I started, I had a record label when I was in college. I had a online bookstore after college. I did so many different things, but I guess I had a relative that was in the fire department, and he said, "Hey man, you can do all those things that you want to do, all the little creative things that you do." He didn't know what I did. All those little creative things that you like to do. You can go play on your computer as much as you want, but you can only work 9.5 days a month. What? Sign me up. And so I joined the volunteer fire department at 25 years old. And didn't really, I was kind of just thrown into it. And to be honest with you, and that's brutally honest, most career firemen aren't going to come out and say, "I wanted to drive a fire truck when I was 5 years old." Most of them will say, "Oh, it was the benefits, it was the schedule, it was all of these things that got him into it." That initially got me into it, but then it was the love, it was the passion that I felt for the job after volunteering for a short amount of time. And then I got hired, and man, let me tell you, there has been no better way to clue me into human psychology and philosophy than to be a medic firefighter working with the public. To see people in that job, you see almost everyone you see on a call is on their worst day. And you get to see how much the mind plays as a culprit of making it their worst day.
Wow.
So does that answer that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that makes me want to ask another question, which is, you deal with people in like you said, on their worst day, the worst moments of their lives, and while that's got to be hard to deal with, it's got to also be a blessing in disguise, because you get to see things that nobody else gets to see. You get to see a side of people. I'm sure you get to see some amazing resiliency and some people who really deal with that in an amazing way and don't just crumble under the pressure. And I think people can deal with a lot more than they think they can.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So having that experience, what would you want, with the listeners, what would you want everybody else to know? If you could say, hey, if you could get this one piece of experience from my job and dealing with all these people, here's what you should know about the world at large, the people that are out there.
That's really difficult, especially to be really extremely politically correct and everything to go along with that. I guess the first thing that I would say answer about the job is that it's not what you see on TV. That's not what we do. We wear, as firemen, as medics, we wear so many hats. And we don't just sit in the fire station and play checkers while we wait for a call. It's 24 hours, and you are working solid almost all 24 hours. You're going to a fire. You're going to a maternity. You're going to a car crash. You're going to go fix a pipe. You've got to be a plumber, a doctor, you've got to go do all of these things. And so that's that piece of that question. The other part of that question is the people who are in the most pain are the people who decide to be dramatic about it. And you can see, I've seen people in immense pain, but the people who are able to deal with that pain better are those who accept the situation and place trust and faith in what we do and what's going to happen in their lives. So they have this sense of an acceptance. Okay, this happened. We're taking care of it. The people who are really dramatic about it, and it's tough not to be when you're in a lot of pain. If they're focused on everything that's wrong, it creates so much more pain, so much more anxiety. And so I've seen that so many times in the back of an ambulance that when I go out on the disc golf course, I can see it in people who are playing the game. Does that make sense?
It does.
Absolutely.
It's clearly a theme that's in your book, actually. And when you wrote the book, I mean, is that some of the experience that inspired a lot of that message in the book? Of it's not so much what happens, it's how you react to it.
Absolutely, hands down. Everything that I wrote about in the book, I noticed on the golf course, but was already implanted there in my daily experience on and off work. So at home with my family, with friends, but also on the job where I see people on their worst days.
Interesting. Well, that was pretty heavy. Let me see if I can find something fun.
And please,
in my bag of tricks.
We've never said which fire department I work for, and we can't say which fire department I work for about it. This is a message to my fire chief. Please don't fire me after hearing this.
So, Pat, let me think. I'm going to ask some fun questions, and then we'll do some more deep. How would you describe your sense of style?
I'm still a kid. And what I mean by that is I was talking about earlier how I grew up in the punk scene. If I wasn't balding on the top, I'd still have my mohawk.
Oh, yeah, I believe it.
I just have a gap in the middle now.
A sumhawk.
Yeah.
Right.
So I wear a lot of punk rock t-shirts. I wear a lot of Social Distortion, Ramones shirts, and I'm almost always wearing cutoff fatigues. I'm still a kid. I'm still that punk rock kid.
That's Pat 101.
Yeah.
All right.
Is that what you meant by my sense of style?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think people should know what you would wear on a regular basis, because you can tell, you'd be surprised what you can figure out about a person by what they're wearing.
And what's funny is I talked about having the mohawk in the book and all that kind of stuff, but I also used to have an 8-gauge septum ring when I was in college.
Oof.
Yeah.
That's a big one. So what? So if somebody were to dig up a picture of your past, what's the one punk rock uniform that you would not want anybody to see?
I think I pretty much wore the same thing I do now that I used to. When I was on stage, I wore like 20 some odd Doc Martens all the time. That was my stage uniform. That's the only thing different than what I would wear on stage and what I normally wear. I used to wear a lot of spikes and stuff when I was in college, but they just become cumbersome. Now I can't stand wearing any jewelry or anything.
Wow.
It makes me uncomfortable.
So what's your favorite musical act besides yourself?
Do I have to list one? I'm all over the board, though.
I'll tell you what. I'll give you 3.
Okay.
3, none from the same genre.
None from the same genre?
None
okay,
from
that
the same
actually
genre.
helps me because the way I look at music is medication. And so there is different pills for different diseases, there is music for every different moment that you have in your life. So I'll listen to one thing while I'm lifting, a different thing while I'm doing cardio, a different thing while I'm doing all this kind of stuff. But in my background, I mentioned that I not only was in some hardcore bands, some Krishnacore. Well, I was in some hardcore bands, some industrial bands, things like that. But I also had a short stint as a hip hop producer on 2 different occasions.
Thug life.
Let me tell you, it was a little bit awkward, but I do like hip hop as well. So I like a little bit of everything. Every music has its place, and I think if you just stick yourself to one certain genre, really, I couldn't do it. So how about you give me 3 genres?
All right, I'm gonna make these as broad.
Make one of them industrial.
Pan flute.
All right. So, all right, I'm gonna make this as broad as possible. So, rock to include industrial metal, etc. Country to include bluegrass, Americana, and then pop to include all that terrible stuff on the top 40 countdowns.
I don't have... Well, okay. All right. So I'm going to give you an industrial band, Skinny Puppy, Changed My Life. And if I know that sounds funny if you've never heard that band name before, but they were amazing and they got me into industrial music when I was young and just really avant-garde electronic music. And that's what I was making a lot of times when I was in the recording studio overnight. I had a couple bands that were industrial. Media Violence was one of them, and Aggressive Attack was another one of them. And I fully credit, I had a lot of inspirations, but Skinny Puppy was huge. They were like the beginning of industrial electronic back in the early 80s. Country, Johnny Cash.
I knew it was coming. I don't even know why I asked.
Yeah. So hands down, Johnny Cash, the Man in Black.
Yes.
I have so many Johnny Cash t-shirts. I'm surprised you even left that out there.
I just threw it out there so that I know, but the fans need to know.
And the last one, pop, that one's really difficult for me because I don't really listen to radio. I never have.
Don't let him lie to you. He's got so many Bieber albums.
We talked about Apple Music before the podcast got started, and I use that a lot. I'm learning about a lot of different artists and things like this. I said, but music is medication. And so I listen to, I can't even think I don't even really listen to that much Skinny Puppy anymore. But when I was a kid, I listened to a lot of that. And then I still listen to a lot of Johnny Cash. But let me give you, when I am going to an interview, a job interview, when I need big boost to self-confidence, when I need, to feel like I'm walking on air, like I have wings and I'm not drinking Red Bull, I need a certain medication, and that medication's Jay-Z.
Interesting.
Because Jay-Z talks about how he is the best on every song. And so when you hear somebody say that so many times, you're like, and you're singing along, you're reprogramming your brain. I'm the best.
Have you ever heard of a song by Mr. Z and another fellow, Mr. West? It's a song about ham.
Yes.
About going ham. I listen to that before I do some of my interviews, as I can't call them anything else on the air.
Do you know who produced that song? Interesting story.
No, I do not.
It's coming from a producer, I'm going to tell you, Lex Luger. And
really,
well, not the X-Man.
No, I know who you're talking about. Yeah,
but he's from Virginia Beach. I just want to throw that out there. He's from our hometown.
No kidding.
The guy who produced that track. Keep going. I'm sorry.
All right. Let me think.
Actually, I have a follow-up to that. Whenever I talk to musicians, I always ask them, every once in a while I run into somebody who says, I don't like music. And after I slap them a couple times, I always want to ask musicians.
I've never heard anybody say that.
Every once in a while. But, when you run into people, they're like, I don't listen to a lot of music. I listen to more talk radio. If you were to say that everybody was required to listen to, for their just general music appreciation, 3 to 5 albums, what would they be?
At 3 to 5?
Yeah.
Okay. Pink Floyd, The Wall.
Yep. Nice, perfect.
Number 1. The Ramones, Rocket to Russia.
Interesting.
But you know what? Everybody has so much different taste. So I have to... I can't tell somebody what they're going to like. So... I can only tell you what my favorite albums are. Melvin's Houdini would be another one. That's another kind of obscure one. Skinny Puppy Bites. And I just want to throw something really random out there that would be... I want to give you something really old. Something blues.
Sorry.
Anything by John Lee Hooker. Anything by John Lee Hooker.
Oh, it's beautiful.
So, there's that.
Okay. All right. Now, we've heard a lot about your musical background, your professional
this has turned into a
background.
music podcast.
Let's talk about disc golf. Let's
Yes.
get back to the matter at hand.
Yeah, before they start going, you had me until episode 13. Nobody gives a crap about your music career.
Who the hell is Skinny Puppy?
Yeah.
If you're drafting a disc golf team, 5 players,
Oh, man.
to save the world from evil alien disc golfers, who do you pick?
Paul Macbeth, Will Shoestrick, Avery Jenkins, Sarah Holcomb, Paige Pierce.
Damn, you had that one, huh? Oof.
Your team is strong.
Well, I wasn't going to put any weak players on there to save the earth.
You're
And
not wrong.
all of those 5, if you want to be on the podcast, please let me know. We're trying to do more interviews on here, but we're having a hard time getting people to comply.
And we've chosen you to save the world, so I mean,
We definitely have the listeners. They want to hear you. So
we wash your back, now you wash your... I'm just saying.
So you've been playing disc golf for 18 years, right?
yeah, with about a 15-year break.
Okay. Just a little bit of time off, that's all. Just
Well, I mentioned that in the
to
book,
recoup
too.
a little bit.
Hiatus.
So what's something that you used to do when you started playing that you really believed in, that you thought everybody should do, that now in your age and wisdom you realize was wrong and you don't need to do it?
Well, we're really reaching back to when I was very young. I was like 15 years old. So that would be the same mistake that everybody walks into. Buy the highest speed disc you can, and the disc will do all the work.
For me, it was going to be drink 62 beers.
It's only 3 beer, don't worry about it.
I wasn't drinking 62 beers out on the disc golf course at 15. He says I was.
My past is none of your business.
But yeah, buy the highest speed driver and let the disc do all the work, because everybody knows how great that works.
Yeah, I learned. Oh man, this thing's called a nuke. It's so cool. Why doesn't it fly good?
And then did you scream America after you threw the disc?
America! I'm gonna call that basket Hiroshima.
My first disc was a N of a Viper, which was like a fade 4 or 5, something
That's
ridiculous.
I think my first disc was a dart.
That's a good disc.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. Well, the thing was, and it's something I don't do anymore, but I would throw with both hands. And I can still throw with both, but I've developed my right hand to where I don't need to throw with my left anymore. I do it on occasion, but it's very rare. Anyway, enough about me. This is about you, Pat.
So we'll stick in the disc golf vein. So you said that the mistake that you made when you first started was buying too fast discs. Tell me about your biggest light bulb moment in disc golf, when you sat on the course and you went, I get it. What did you get? What was it?
Okay, that would have to be back when I started up again, back in like 2010 or so. It was the same aha moment where the book came out. It was, this is supposed to be fun. It's not. Two things kind of hit me at the same time. This is like chess. This is like surfing. There's flow here, and it's supposed to be fun. So it combines both the intellectual and the flow and that chasing that perfect flight.
No, that's great. I imagine it's a lot like, I hear people talk about surfing, and I've never surfed, and I know it's 2 completely different things. One's riding the wind and one's riding a wave. And it's 2 completely different things, but I see a lot of parallels and a lot of similarities, so that makes sense. I'm
a terrible surfer. I just want to throw that out there.
I'm afraid of sharks and jellyfish, so I'm not going to try.
I got 4% body fat. I don't float.
You're not very buoyant.
No, it's really hard.
It's almost a good problem to have, though.
But at least the sharks don't bother you. You're like, I'm leaving that skinny guy alone.
Yeah, I'm not very tasty, as it were. All right, Pat. So what's your ideal day on the golf course? Lay it out there for me. I'm talking weather conditions, how many people are on the course, what discs are you bringing, what's your score at the end of the round?
Me and you, nobody else.
All right.
And Tim.
Nice talking to everybody.
You and Tim out on the course. Nobody else.
It's like George Thorogood over here drinking alone.
This is weird. My score would be an 18. This is perfect, right?
That's a perfect score.
Yeah. The weather would be 78 degrees.
Okay.
Light breeze.
Light breeze. Which course you playing?
Munden.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. It's just the first. It's so nice and quiet there.
Because when it's 78 degrees, you're not going to make it out of Northwest alive.
It's so quiet there that you can hear your disc fly through the air.
That's true. Yeah, it is something about being there when you snap one off your hand and you're the pop.
Yeah. Anyway, so I would pick a course out in Utah because that's where I'd love to live in Utah. And every course I pick there for my moment of zen is just beautiful. But I've not played any of them, so I can't say those. So Munden, the three of us playing, my score's an 18, and I hit an ace on every hole with a KC Pro AVR.
Ooh, fancy.
Nice.
That I don't know how to answer that question.
All right. Well, I mean, we've asked a lot of really good questions, I think, and I think the answers that you've provided are give people a better understanding of who Pat McCormick is, because they may not be able to necessarily see your face, but they hear your voice. And in a way, when you're faceless, you're kind of, in a way, nameless. So it gives you a background to your character. But in summation, if there's anything that you want the people to know about Pat McCormick that hasn't been said, what would it be?
I'm just a dude. I'm just a dude with a wife. I've got a 2-week-old son, and I do everything Zen Disc Golf related from my living room. We're podcasting in my son's nursery right now. We've podcasted on the back porch of the house. I don't have, we're just dudes. We're just dudes having a good time, and I've had the luxury, and I'm so grateful to have such success from this book that I put out that I didn't even know if anybody was going to buy. But at the end of the day, I'm just a dude trying to make people happy. That's it.
Well said,
Beautiful.
Pat. Well said. Well, that leads us into our...
Let's give a book away.
Book giveaway. In true Zen Disc Golf fashion, like we've done every episode, if you leave a 5-star review on Amazon, you get a signed book. Today's titled Over the Top and in the Basket by Stephen M. He bought it on paperback, and his review is as follows. If I could rate it a 10-star, I would. This book not only has helped my game, it gave me insight into my own life. It has opened up doors I never thought possible. I've even purchased a few extra to give as gifts. Every disc golfer needs to add this book to their bag. In addition, listening to the podcasts are a great companion and a way to put it all together. Clear your mind and get out and throw.
That's awesome. And I wish you would have said his name was Stephen Mon. Did you almost say
Stephen
that?
Mon. I had to think about it.
So, Stephen, go ahead and email me, zendiscgolf@gmail.com. I will receive your email in my living room on my cell phone. I will then proceed over to my desk, which is near my man wall because it has been shrunk. I used to have a man cave, and it keeps becoming smaller and smaller, so now I just have a man desk, and that's it. I will pick up a book on that said desk. I will write my name in it ever so elegantly. I will draw a little picture of a basket with a circle around it. Mm-hmm. I will pop it in an envelope, and I will send it to you as a thank you and so much gratitude for leaving a 5-star review on the Amazons.
Well, in the spirit of giving, I believe we also have to give away a disc.
Yeah.
So we have what I would describe as kind of a gunmetal gray Discmania.
That's how I describe my Prius, too. But it's definitely not that color.
You're giving away a Prius?
That's a,
Hang on a second. I'm going to go write a review.
No. We're not giving away a Prius.
he's giving away the Zen Disc Golf mobile.
Again, I'm just a dude who likes
Who's walking now?
who drives a Prius because it only costs him $30 a month in gas. That's all he's got.
So this is an MD3, 180 grams, sweet looking disc. Now everybody knows Discmania, European country, but this disc right here, the stamp, American flag.
America.
They know what's up. Anyhow, good, clean disc, absolutely mint condition, licked by yours truly. Moving on, Pat, I think you want to.
Let's go back. What was it done by yours truly?
Licked?
Oh, you mean you put your tongue on that disc?
It's up to somebody to find out.
Yeah. We'll have to do the DNA test. They might, but it might be like a Jurassic Park. They might grow a new Zach wherever that goes to.
I could use another one of me. I'm a big man.
So this one goes out to the real Smed. Is there a fake Smed? The real Smed, who left a 5-star review for the podcast, and he titles it "See the Gap, Not the Trees." So he must have been a pretty big fan of that episode we had with the same title. I was looking for a disc golf podcast and found Zen Disc Golf. This podcast does an awesome job at being informative while being funny and inspirational along the way. The podcast flows in such a way that not only are Pat and Zach giving you pointers to use while you're chasing the chains, but they also give you some food for thought to apply to your daily life. They are great ambassadors for the sport. High five.
Crushed it. Air 5, Tim.
Better five than that. Come on. There we go.
Geez. I'm right-handed. There we go.
There it is.
That's better.
Hey, Tim, high five.
Got it.
Okay. They are great ambassadors for the sport, including introducing companies, organizations, and individuals who are promoting and growing disc golf. They definitely have helped me see the gap and not the trees.
Dude, sweet review.
Love it.
Cool.
Real Schmed.
Real Smed. Are you going to have a fight with the fake Smed? Are you trying to sue the fake Smed?
Would you say that the fake Smed is your alter ego? Or how does that? I don't know. Maybe you're Batman. I don't ask questions.
Was the fake Smed the person who gave us a 1-star review?
Was he similar to the real Slim Shady?
Same relative.
Will the real
Either way, just
Smed
make sure-
please stand up?
Well, guys, I hope the folks at home were kind of entertained by that. We did talk a little bit about disc golf, a lot about music. That's cool.
But
This is our podcast. We do what we want.
I think that we took what could be seen as an organization or a book or a philosophy and made it a little bit more personal to give people insight into who the leader of Zen Disc Golf is. And I think that's very important when people want to buy into a brand and they want to buy into the people behind it. And I think that we did them justice in that way.
Well, it's a good idea, you guys. I appreciate you guys coming up with questions for me.
Yeah, I agree, man. It's I think it's important to understand that, you know, that you're out there trying to do good for other people. We're all out there trying to help other people enjoy the sport a lot more. We're not out there trying to just make a buck. We're not out there just trying to peddle stuff. We're not out there just to hear our own voices. We're really, truly, I know you feel the same way, that when I find out or you find out that we've made somebody's life better through disc golf, or that we made their game better, that's what we live for. And I really think it's important that people see that we really are just three guys just trying to make your life better on the disc golf course. Because, man, I'll tell you, when you're having a great day out there, there's just nothing better.
Nothing.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing. I wish we were out there today. It was a beautiful day.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
I was floating around.
So follow mindbodydisc.com, zendiscgolf.com, if I could say my own URL. Follow us all on the Twitters, on the Facebooks, on the everything, Vines, Periscopes, everything.
Follow Ticklish Hamster.
Yeah.
And the Ticklish Hamster.
And the Ticklish Hamster.
On the Twitters.
Yes, sir.
Most importantly, though,
just throw.
Just throw.
Just throw.